I'm Father Lampe.
And I'm Father Schumacher. And we are the Associates.
How can we better live the lives of the saints, practicing heroic holiness and virtue?
Good. I would say this is the question of the Christian life, right? The Christian life is a life lived in faith and through morality, right? We know God, and knowing Him, we believe Him, we seek to do His will, right? The two things go together, faith and works, faith and action. And the point of the Christian life is to be a saint, right? Everyone in heaven is a saint, and that's where we are trying to end up. That's where God wills for us to end up. So how can we live the lives of the saints? The saints, of course, are the ones who lived virtue in a heroic way, but all of us are called to live virtue in an ordinary way, right? In the ordinary circumstances of your life. And that means, because grace builds on nature, God usually doesn't call us to extraordinary things right off the bat. He calls us to be faithful right where we are with what we have, with whatever situation there is. So how do you do that? Well, virtue is the characteristic of a soul by which it is excellent in some way, right? Virtue is that which gives readiness, ease, and joy in doing something good, right? So think of an example. Courage is a virtue, fortitude, right? Courage is the virtue by which we do that which is the difficult good. Okay? Whether that's going into battle, right? The kind of characteristic example. But any difficult good, facing criticisms or carrying out some good action in the face of opposition, whether natural or moral or human or animal or whatever the opposition might be. So how do you acquire that virtue? You acquire a virtue by doing it, which seems kind of, okay, well, but I don't have the virtue yet. You acquire a virtue by doing the action that the virtue gives you the ease of doing. So at first, a virtue is difficult. At first, being courageous is difficult. You have to kind of stir yourself up and steel yourself and really go into this action, even though you feel scared or you shy away from it. But by doing this several times, eventually you become practiced, and your habit becomes, I'm going to do the courageous thing. I'm going to do the virtuous thing. And if you do that a few more times, eventually it becomes actually easy for you to do. It's like you're building the muscle, as it were. At first, when you're learning to chop down a tree or something, your arms hurt at the end of the day. But after a while, you just get stronger. And it's the same task that you're doing, the tree, to be chopped down, but now your arms are stronger, and so it doesn't feel as hard. This is the way it works with our souls also, with virtue. And so you become ready to do the good thing, it becomes easy for you, and then finally, the final stage by which you know that you really have the settled virtue in your soul is that you take joy in doing it. Think of parents or teachers doing something good for their students or their children, and they actually find it joyful, even though at first they didn't. They have acquired the virtue of generosity or kindness or patience or honesty or humility, right? All of these virtues. Now, the question was, how can we practice heroic virtues? I would say the first thing to do is to get the virtues, right? Find the virtues that you need. Notice the situations in your life that are calling you to do some good thing. And if you're weak in any of those areas, start practicing, right? That's the best way to do it. As I said at the beginning, God usually doesn't call us to extraordinary right off the bat. He calls us to the ordinary. So acquire the virtues. And then you might notice, especially through prayer, that God is calling you to some more extraordinary instantiation of this virtue, right? You might be called to take a stand in a courageous way. You might be called to endure some suffering patiently, without complaining. These are the kinds of things that make us into saints. And perhaps the reason that we have the stories of the saints is to give us examples of what that sanctity looks like and to encourage us that we can do it too.
So when we first start in this journey, this spiritual life, we start with our own efforts with the help of God's grace. But as we make progress, as many doctors of the church have said, there are different stages or ages of the spiritual life, and we move through them. And as we grow in charity, love of God and love of neighbor, we're capable of taking on more extraordinary or heroic tasks. We're able to acquire those more heroic virtues And so the first stage of the interior life, or the spiritual life, is sometimes called the purgative stage, as in we're trying to purge or cleanse ourselves from our sinful habits, our sinful behaviors. And then the next stage would be the illuminative stage, where God is communicating to us in a more profound way, more directly than he has in the past in our ways of prayer. And the last stage is the transformative union, where we are being transformed and prepared for that heavenly union that is to come at the end of our lives. And so following these three ages, all of us start at the beginning, where we're trying to rid ourselves of sinful behaviors and allow God's grace to work through us. Heroic virtue is more in the higher stages of that spiritual life. And so, as Father Schumacher mentioned, we need to progress by first trying to acquire those virtues and allowing God's grace to help propel us, to move us through those ages or those stages of the interior life. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe so that you can continue to get access to the content that we provide to you for Ask the Associates. And
Ask the Associates will have new content every Wednesday.